Right, so there are basically, well, five, but they have prerequisites, but they're basically five key processes that are important in performance management. And and they have other than prerequisites. So the prerequisites are just basically say that the knowledge of the organization's mission, and that's what the videos would have said, up front. You need to have idea about the vision, the mission. What is the vision and mission of the organization? What are the strategic goals? What's its plans and strategies, right? And They are the levels of, they say, the organizational, the wider organizational level, then the unit level and the employee level, which is again consistent with the OB kind of structure for analysis, right? And maybe that's the point I was making earlier, that at the organization-wide level, the CEO wants to look at the broad issues of measurement and broad objectives and goals. But beyond the CEO, then you have departments, so then you're concerned about departmental or unit responsibilities, unit goals, unit measures, unit targets. And within each unit or department, you have employees, which is the bulk of employees will fall within departments or fall within units, which is where it becomes complicated. So the CEO or president knows he or she cannot achieve anything unless the people are doing what they want to do. You can't stop up there and you could issue all the instructions you want. Maybe in days of slavery, in the kind of communist countries where, you're directed and controlled. If you don't do it, you put you in jail. But other than that kind of slavery system where you have no rights, people try to force you to work. Even in that time, slaves had the right and they could determine, I prefer to die than worse. So if a man or woman determines he or she will not do it, you have the option to kill them. So you really can't force anybody to work. People make a choice through fear, I will work. But even in slavery, there are a number of slaves who made a decision, I prefer to die than for you to force me to do things. So remember these different levels, the organization, unit, and individual level, where performance can be assessed at those levels. And the issue of competencies, knowledge, skills, and abilities. So make sure you have an idea about, put it in your glossary about competencies. And we said earlier, people need to know their job, because if people's jobs are not clear, how you can allocate tasks? What are you going to measure? Right? I do any and everything, so how are you going to be fairly measuring me? What's the benchmark? So one of the things you need to, so every year you really need to look back at job descriptions to determine whether or not they are relevant to to what the employee is doing. So people can use job descriptions as the basis to argue, my duties have expanded, I should get an upgraded. And the job analysis is one of the things that helps you to determine what people do. So you're looking at the tasks and activities, products, services, and the work that is done. And so the second thing, or the first real process, is that of performance planning, right? Looking at results, the key accountabilities, who is accountable if something is not done, who is responsible for things, or who are responsible. And then you have the specific objectives and you have performance standards. Right. Now so the assumption here that if your organization has not worked out clear standards, how you're going to be able to really fairly and accurately measure people's performance, you see? So you should really have clear performance standards, which could be benchmarked against the KPIs or the measures that we talked about. So again, the accountability, somebody will be held accountable because he or she is responsible, right? So you can find, again, at all levels, the CEO, deputy CEO, departmental managers and staff, the supervisors and staff, everybody would have areas of responsibility and accountability. But of course, the lower down the front line it comes, the responsibilities and the accountabilities are not that broad. But for the CEO, you're responsible for everything. If the organization does not make profit, if it goes into debt, if it starts to lose customers, the CEO can't say, not me, it's those staff. You are ultimately responsible and accountable. Right? You're the leader. Right? So this is just saying the broad area for a job. So if I am, say, a payables clerk, my responsibility should be related to the duties or what the job description says a payables clerk should do. And that's what I will be responsible for and accountable for whether things are achieved or not. So when I work, by the fact that I am hired to perform a task. So as payables clerk, my duties and responsibilities include these areas. So if I don't perform, I can be held accountable. And that's what the performance then review, when it happens, is it to make people accountable. Did you fulfill the responsibilities given to you? The stuff you can read. This is just telling you about performance standards, right? Yardsticks to evaluate how well employees have achieved each objective. So it depends on the area of work, where you might focus more on quality, some on quantity, cost, and time. So standards vary, right? So in a restaurant, fast food restaurant, which standards do you think might be most important here? Fast food restaurant? Sorry? No, we're talking about here. We have four things: quality, quantity, cost, and time. Which would be important in a fast food restaurant? Which is the most important thing for fast food? Like speak for itself. Time. Instead of fast food restaurant, the most important thing in a fast food restaurant is time. That's what it is. Fast food. Come on, move quickly. When you're for a la carte in a fine dining restaurant, yeah, time is important, but people don't like to be rushed. You understand? They don't want to be rushed, but in fast food, I want to come and get my food and leave. So time is one of the most critical standards. So you will have a key performance indicator for time.
Like ash and fat hole. Any all of us seen it. Like if you go to your drive through ash and fat, there's a monitor on the inside when you get your food that tracks.
They record the time it takes
Yeah,
from the time you order to the time,
yeah. You get your food in it.
Correct. Yeah. So that's what they're doing. They're monitoring time. Because they have worked out a standard. The standard they have is could be 5 minutes. That from the time you order, the longest time it should take is 5 minutes. So they monitor, or 3 minutes. So they monitor and record it, and they got quality assurance people who monitor that. Right. So time. So you see, you establish a standard, and then you put it around the measures. You have an indicator that is able to measure it.
So therefore, you can have more than one standard to measure things. Like
of course,
you can use all three of these.
Of course, that's right. So time is going to be important. Is quality going to be important? Right, but will it be as important as the time? So when you compare fine dining restaurant now, which is most important, the quality or the time? Quality is more important than time. Because I'm at fine dining, which means I'm going to pay top dollar, right? So people in fine dining restaurants don't like to be rushed. You know, I finished my main course. Give me a chance. I'm not ready for dessert yet. Don't tell me you have people coming in. Take your time. So quality is much more important, but again, so you're paying though, so you check the differences. So time. So in fast food restaurants, find the quality is fried chicken. So sometimes the chips half cold, but it's fast food. You want to get fast and neat and go. So you don't worry about, that they come out the pot. You can't get all out, straight out of the fryer or whatever. Right? So quality will be important, but not as important as time. Cost, is cost important in fast food restaurant?
I feel that these things more important in terms of achieving competitive advantage.
Of course.
Right? In terms of a fast food restaurant, yes, time is important, but then when it comes to the quality and the cost and even the quantity, making sure you have enough to provide for the needs that are coming in. So these things contribute to then determining if you're going to be like the leading.
Of course, right. And what your competitors, so you actually use those as their standards. So you use those to benchmark your competitors. It's a very good observation. So you can use it for any business, right? So if we look now at the fine dining, right? Go to a restaurant, you have a 3-course meal or whatever. What standards do you think would be important then? So we said time is not important. quality more. What about quantity and cost? Is cost going to be an important factor in a top-notch fine dining restaurant? Who would be more concerned about price? Customer for fast food or customer for fine dining top-notch restaurant? You think so? Fast food. Yeah. But you're more concerned. No, but I'm saying you're more concerned when you go to fast food. You expect to get a cheap price. So if you go and realize they put on because you expect it's cheap food. But when you determine you're going to a fine dining top-notch restaurant, you know it's going to be expensive.
Well, it does it in terms of in relation to the quantity, because sometimes when you go to a fine dining restaurant, the quantities will be so small.
But it's expected. Caroline is expected, but Caroline is expected. Is it? Yes.
$1 on, I think the wingding special, and everybody was kind of like, why wingdings going up?
Of course.
If anybody put on $20 on the cost,
yeah, cause fine dining, you go expected when you go to fine dining restaurant at the top level, you expect it will be expensive, and you know the quantities will not because you're more focusing on the highest quality of the cuisine. Cause you're looking now for the sauces. You know, high quality international sauces, the quality of beef. If I buy steak in fine dining, I expect this quality beef. So I am interested in not so much the size as I'm interested in the quality of the steak. And when I get fish, I don't want you fry a fish in raw oil. You need to use the most expensive like soft oils, olive oils, and things like that. And you know it's well marinated, and even the decor. I expect that when I go to fine dining, how you plate that thing is important to me. So it's more of heavy focus on quality, right? Because it's an experience, you know. And you normally go to fine dining, some special occasion, you know, some anniversary, you know, some your daughter or son might have graduated or get to, you know. So you go to a special occasion, some special family outing, right? So tourists come here for fabulous vacations and want a memorable vacation. So when they go back home, they might not be able to afford the kind of price that we have here. But while you're here, they want to experience some very exquisite restaurants, but they know they have to pay, right? And if you want wine, again, they ain't got no cheap wine at the fine dining. So if you want wine, you're going to be paying really top dollar for the wines, but you expect it, you see? And you expect you're going to get the quality to suit. Now, the problem would be, Caroline, if you don't get the quality, right? So if the quality of the fish is similar to Baxter's Road, well, you have a problem. I pay $200 a plate for Baxter's Road fried fish. Like, let's go on Baxter's Road, out the buck pot with wood, and buy it steak for $20 or $25.
And I guess as many standards, now your performance standards will be low.
Right, so when I go now to Baxter's Road, I go to Oystins. So when you go to Oystins, again, in terms of quality, you think people worry a lot about the quality of Oystins? What do people want when they go to Oystins? What do you think they're looking for there? When people go to Oystins, you think the fish arm thing?
I can't answer that. Because it's like some people go for the experience, some people go for...
Caroline, that's it. I'm don't talk. Most tourists or returning nationals go to Oystins for the experience. A night out, open air, people singing karaoke, people dancing. You can go up on stage and sing and dance. You got local characters, half drunk people, you know. So it's really an experience, a cultural experience. So when people come here, especially the tourists, and it's largely targeting tourists, whether Caribbean tourists or returning nationals, they're going to Oystins for an experience. So if you have to assess the performance of staff working there, right, and what they are producing, you see, so when they start to fry fish, they're going to get that because people want to be served quickly too. That's like fast food. So people just got a fish. So the quality is going to vary. They might overcook some, they might undercook some. But people just want to eat and enjoy the experience and have fun. Drink a beer, drink some rum. The chips could be overcooked. Well, nobody's going to pick that I went to Oystins and the chips are overfried. Or the breadfruit chips. So depending on when you go, it will vary. You go this month, excellent. You go to 2 months after, things overcooked, overfried. But again, in fine dining and Chefette, even like Chefette or Kentucky, there's a consistent standard in how the things are prepared. This is how Kentucky is done. This is how even the chicken barn down the hill, this is how it is done. We have a particular flavor, a particular taste. This is how our chips are done consistently. So what I'm saying, in a practical sense, now if you look at even these fast food operations, when cooks are working, then they would assess cooks based on you are cooking the chicken to our standard. It might not be fine dining, but we know the standard, right? We know the spices that might be entered. We know the cooking time, and you can monitor that. That our chicken barn chicken is put in the rotisserie for 45 minutes. That's our standard. But if you let it go into 60 minutes, you have basically gone outside the standard. It's unacceptable, and you can mark you down. But somebody has to be monitoring. So that's what we are talking about: performance monitoring, consistent monitoring to help people to improve. And if you realize the person was not paying attention and allow it to go into 50 to 60 minutes, that is going to make sure it is overcooked. It may start to get a bit tough, and you need to now talk to them, right, and indicate this is not a standard. And the point somebody mentioned about training, it might be a training issue that the person might be new, and they might need training to ensure that they understand the minimum standards that are done to prepare chicken for chicken barn down the hill. The chips are put in the broiler or whatever for 5 minutes only. It's boiling hot, 5 minutes. So don't look at it and say, but they look a bit white still. The standard is 5 minutes. And when the 5 minutes is out, you take it out. So it's not to your opinion. Let me let it last a little longer. Because once you start to do that, you're breaching standards. And that's the tendency for workers to start to feel that home, I like my chips looking brown. But if chicken barn thing is, we have 5 minutes from the time they're thawed out and you put in the broiler, that's our standard. If you like your chips brown, when you get home, you can do your chips brown. But it's our standard. Now, if I observe you doing it over 5 minutes, it's a case for me to come now and indicate this is a caution. You're falling below our standards. Come up to the standards, right? And that will be the time factor, right? The cost, the cost is the cash registers will have it built in there. And quantity again too. What quantity of chips? And what's it? They might have a dispenser. Well, Chefette has it well. Chefette has a little kind of aluminum thing that you scoop up and you put it, and so they've worked out the quantity. But the tool allows the staff to put in quantity. Now, a staff member could put in one and then put in a half. Now, if you put in one and put in a half because you think it was not enough, if they fell out, so once you put in more than one, whatever the implement is, you have really breached the standards, which would come into the quantity standards. And the built-in quality could be there I believe they may have the stoves automated for a particular time frame when they're broiling the chicken or whatever. You could turn it up, but again, if you turn it a notch to a higher temperature or longer time, right? So if you change the temperature, you might change the quality of it. If you lower the temperature, again, you might change whatever spices they put in it, right? Even in preparing like rotis, again, standards. You can look at quality, quantity, the cost, and the time it takes to prepare these things. And then you have the performance execution, where people are actually, once the standards are clear, what would I have to do then once the standards are clear? Standards are clear. Perform the task. Something is missing. What's missing? The standards are clear. What should I do in going into performance execution? I have my standards.
Behavior. What can you change?
Behavior is one of the things.
Develop ways to achieve these standards.
But how would you do that? What has to happen? For whom? Or for what?
For whom would be for the employees.
So I have standards. The standards tell me how things are supposed to be done. Then I have employees. So I now have to get employees to be able to work to the standards. So what do I do before employees start to work? That's it. I need to train or evaluate. I need to assess or evaluate the employees, and I assess and evaluate to determine what? Competence. Right. So are they or who is competent to work to the standard? Because the person might have worked at another fast food restaurant. So when I evaluate, they have all the competencies. I just need to make sure they understand what the standards are. And I'm convinced they can work to the standard once I still do some basic orientation training. So I now need to make sure staff are trained to perform to the standards. So even if you come in with skills, I still need to make sure that I retrain you and orient you to perform to my standards. Because my standards might be a little different from the other employer standards. So we see now we are saying that in execution, preparing workers for the execution is really an important function. So it means HR now, the training and development function of HR now complements performance management. Everybody sees that? You're talking about employees' responsibilities. That is where you're actually doing it. Communication with the supervisor, preparing for the review, etc. And that's the execution. And then the performance, so execution is we are doing it. So you have the standards, the employee does it, and then you have then the performance assessment where we are now saying you have performed. This is a 6-month review. Let's sit down and analyze how you have performed. Right? So you performed for the last 6 months. I want to see how you performed according to your individual goals, the KPIs you had established, and we're going to make sure you maintain the standards. But since you would have been doing the feedback, and that's the thing about performance management, every day and every week you're communicating with staff and giving feedback. So by the time once the performance management system works, by the time it comes to the 6-month review, the employee basically would know the standard of performance because the supervisor would have been working with him or her all along to ensure that if there were weak areas, I would have come in to do the on-the-job training to make sure that you really meet. That's the task really, to make sure you meet the standard and not to find that the reporting time has come and you say, yes, I got you now, you did not meet the standard. Performance management is intended to make sure that all employees are able to meet and exceed the standards or achieve the objectives and targets. You see the point I'm making? So in the old system of performance appraisal, a lot of supervisors like to catch the workers doing something wrong to penalize them. But by that time, the organization would have been affected because if people are not performing their jobs to the standards, it means customers would not have gotten the best service and the organization would not perform as it should. So you don't want to catch people failing or not performing to standard. You want to be able to help people. If the supervisor is trying to help and does not get the support from employees, well, there's a choice. You made a choice, but there's a disciplinary consequence that comes after. Right. And remember, these things will be dealt with in topic by topic over semester. So we're just giving you a summary of some of the topics that will be covered. And the actual performance review, where you're filling up the form, is what we're talking about here. And they're giving you some steps that you can read up on your own. And the last one will be renewal of contract, if there's a contract to be renewed, right? That you're saying then, I have assessed your performance, I'm comfortable, let's start to set some goals and objectives now for the period that is to come. That's what it is saying. And that's really the various processes that are going to be followed in performance management. So what we'll do